you never really understand a book 100% until you hear a lot of people's opinions on it. It's not good to only read a book and then have your opinion be the only one that's there. So it was very influential to have so many people who are also passionate about, great books and great literature just tune in every week and not only give their opinions but also give research-based findings and also express what was going on with the plot. One of the things I found particularly intriguing about the course was how it challenged us to sort of think through the text rather than just tell us what was happening. Especially with Hemingway, reading his books and his prose is really, you really have to dig through the text to find out what he's trying to say. But something that I found really interesting was that by the end of it, we all had a grasp of what he was trying to say and what the overall theme and the message of the book was, even though it's never said explicitly in the book what the point of the book of the story is. And that's something that both the peers and the instructor were really helpful on, just understanding that aspect of the book and sort of everybody being able to pull in from our own experiences and our own knowledge of other texts and outside sources to sort of formulate this overall answer. She was really, an amazing instructor. She asked, the way she taught the text was that, like I said, she never really told us what to make of the text, but she let us find out by ourselves. And the way she did this was asking a lot of questions, and the questions were sort of directing us through the narrative. So for example, the book starts with Jake Barnes, which is the main character in Paris, and it goes over a lot of his experiences as an expatriate in that city in the 1920s. Much like Hemingway himself was. That book is inspired by himself. And she sort of led us through the dialogues, and one thing I found particularly interesting, I was not able to understand a lot of the slang, because it's a lot of I would not only say American slang but also 1920s slang, sort of flapper and tight, and a lot of words like that were used in a different context. And Cheryl Hall helped a lot with that. She was very influential, and also something I found very, very helpful, not even only inside of the course but also outside, was how when we turned in our papers, she would give us sort of feedback, and then letting us know what was good with the paper and then what needed sort of an improvement. And that helped immensely, not only in helping us understand how we can be better writers, but also outside, maybe turning in better work. Many times, but I can remember one specific scene from that book when, and I can't tell you specifically the chapter, but I remember it was Jake Barnes with his friend Bill. Bill just gets to Paris and from a long trip, and he gets there, and it's this moment in the book where they both go walking in the streets of Paris, and they go by a bridge, and then they sort of stop and they look at the skyline just before them, and they see the lights, and they see everything that Paris means and what it was back then in 1920s, sort of this mecca for artists and painters and writers and everything that gave birth to later modern artists. And sort of the way the language is structured in that specific scene, and the way the dialogue just reveals what these people feel, I can remember one specific dialogue when they say like, one would be a fool to leave Paris, which is just an amazing line. And I found at that moment that I need to live in Paris sometime. I am particularly opposed to online classes. I just feel, in the online setting, you usually lose so much from that interaction with the professor or the instructor and the other participants of the class. I feel like, like when you're there in the classroom, that's where it takes place. But I will say that the way Hertog did it and the way Cheryl specifically implemented, different things in our session were amazing, because Zoom has this buttons that you press, and it's like if you were raising your hand. But Cheryl told us since the beginning that she didn't want that. She wanted us to actually raise our hands, so that way it worked more as if it was like an actual classroom, and it felt as though that's what it was. It was amazing that we didn't have to like click a button and then like wait until we popped up on her screen. No, it was like an actual classroom experience where all of us raised our hands, and then she sort of like wrote it on a paper, on like a list, and then she would go name by name. And I have to say, nowhere, like at no time did it feel that she was like skipping over people, or that some people weren't having their words said. Everybody, like I really like the way Cheryl structured that, so that everybody had their time to say their thoughts, and then their opinions were welcome, of course. And yeah, it was even though it was online, I found it very immersive. Well, the first thing I would say to them, I wouldn't really say something to them. I would ask them a question, and the question that I would ask them would be, are you ready to rigorously study a book? So do you like this text enough that you're willing to give the time that it needs to not only be read but also be studied? Because it's different to read a text, and it's to actually understanding every line of it, sort of like diving deep into every chapter, not only understand the story but also the author, because they're both equally important. So I would ask them, do you like this specific text enough? Do you like literature enough to dedicate a lot of time into its study? And then if the answer is yes, then I would say, then go ahead and do it. Because like I said, I don't think I have ever outside of my own classes in my university, I don't think I have ever had an experience as rich and as as academically rigorous as what Hertog did, because it's I feel like I almost breathe with this character sometimes, the way the course was taught, and the way we like I said, we really went into every chapter, and we there's a specific scene, for example, where the two of the characters leave Paris and then they go to this countryside setting. And at the beginning, when I had read it, I was like, yeah, but it doesn't. I didn't believe it meant a lot. I thought it was like filler. And when we went over it with Cheryl, it was like a whole like different way of looking at it. It's Cheryl introduced the idea of like a return to Eden, which is these two characters just escaping Paris and then actually being happy in the countryside, which I had never thought about it that way, and I found it so interesting and so meaningful once I studied it. So definitely would recommend it for somebody who's interested in literature.